Hello, I'm Tony, and today we will be taking a look at Apico, a beekeeping game free from Prime Gaming until 14th of February 2024. Looking at the picture that Amazon puts up, I wasn't that enthused about it, but this game's actually a fair bit more involved than I was expecting, and a lot more engaging. Graphically, it's very basic, like many of the free games Amazon gives away, and pretty much a standard of many indie games. Everything is blocky and a little indistinct, though to be fair, I always knew what I was looking at. And if there's a choice between better graphics or more content, I'm going to go with more content. I do feel the graphics contributed to it being a little bit awkward to move around the map sometimes. Because it's indistinct, you can't always tell the difference between water you can walk in and water you can't. Music is surprisingly sparse, with short tunes popping up for, I don't know, like less than a minute before fading away again. There is an option to buy a jukebox and the records themselves at some point in the game when you've earned enough money, which I'm assuming lets you play full tracks for as long as you like. I'm not sure, I've not got it myself yet, but I just don't know why it isn't there all the time. There are sound effects that provide background noise like birdsong or the noise of bees, but it doesn't really make up for a lack of background music. However, all of this fades away during gameplay. There is a pretty bare bones story about you returning to your grandparents to become a beekeeper, but it's kind of only there to give flavour to the tutorial. In my 8 hours of play, it hasn't really played any kind of significant part in the game. You are introduced to the game mechanics via your grandpa's guide, which is a 40 odd step tutorial that does a great job of guiding you through how and why you need to do things. There are so many things that you will want to be doing. First off, you want to discover and repopulate the 48 bee species that exist across different climates on different islands, which you do through a combination of exploration and crossbreeding. There's only a few basic species you can collect to begin with, and different hives you create can either boost population or attempt to breed new species. Each time a new species is found, you have to chuck 3 of them under a microscope to learn what their traits are. Each bee has a range of stats and traits, and higher stats don't necessarily mean better stats. For example, if you want quick breeding cycles to try and generate new species, you actually want a queen bee's lifespan to be lower. If you're using them to farm resources, you might want it to be higher. So it kind of depends. Crossbreeding that I mentioned gives you a chance of having offspring that are different species from the parents, and luckily you will be given a guide that tells you what combinations provide what species. There's a ton of work here to discover all the species. As I said, I'm 8 hours in and I've only got 11 out of the 48. If all that breeding stuff sounds like a lot, and it is, there is actually more to the game, because you've also got crafting, building and the obligatory selling what you crafted. Everything you get via gathering, like logs from chopping down trees, or harvesting, say from the beehives, is either going to be used to craft something to sell or sold directly, likely to buy something that you actually can't craft yourself, and there's a lot of those things. It does feel like a real slog to start to make money. There are items you need to buy that cost in hundreds of coins, and you're initially stuck with items that sell for 1 coin or less. Fear not though, once you're able to make booze, money is much less of a problem, because everyone is apparently a bit of a drinker. Once you've made enough money and found enough bee species, you can buy a boat off of your grandpa. I don't know why he doesn't just give you one. He's a bit stingy. You can then explore the rest of the map. The building aspect is a bit finicky. It's obviously effectively 2D really, so there's not that much complicated stuff to do. There's a wide range of different tile types, so you can actually make your house pretty nice and quite personalised. The process is simply putting down tiles though, so nothing too crazy. I didn't find it especially easy to line things up as I would like. You can turn on snap to grid. I found that it placed things a little bit too far apart for me, and it wasn't that easy to line things up otherwise. Could have been a skill issue on my part though, to be fair. The game gives you an option to sleep, and I believe it might be important in creating some bee species, but my poor avatar hasn't managed to stop in about 18 days. He must be knackered. Outside of the kind of quests that the guides give you, there is also a notice board in the first town that gives a series of crafting quests, which also kind of helps prod you in the right direction for things to make and things to try and achieve. I think the developers nailed the number of hints and nudges that they give to not spoil the feeling of exploration and discovery that is so important in these kind of games. That is the reason why I'm going to stop talking about them though, because I really recommend that fans of farming games play this one. My first time sitting down to do this review playing the game, I played for 5 hours straight and only stopped to go to bed, very much unlike my avatar in the game. I always felt there was more to be done, and there was. Thanks to items having durability, you always need to go gather stuff if you're not actively breeding or going through the slightly more involved process of extracting resources from a hive than I would expect it to be. Discovering new species and new crafting items and new options in the game in general was fun. I've actually found myself thinking about the next steps of what I'm going to do in the game outside of actually playing the game. What was meant to be another hour or so of playing before I wrote this review ended up being 3. So it's fair to say I found it pretty addictive. There are so many elements of the game that look interesting that I've not even touched, like the butterfly breeding, but there's also items in the game that are kind of mysterious, so I know I'm only really just getting started here. It's a really charming game for the things to do that I reckon will keep farming fans fully engaged. Give this one a try, especially when it's free on Prime, but if you miss it on Prime, I still recommend it. Okay, I've got to be going. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you soon. Goodbye.